Could a tiny 50 centavo coin from Mexico really be worth as much as $90,450?
Most 1975 Mexican coins are ordinary, but a genuine mint error can turn an overlooked piece of pocket change into a remarkable collector's treasure. The first coin in today's video is the 1975 Mexican 50 centavos error coin, with the value range discussed here reaching from $30,300 to $90,450, depending on the specific error, rarity, condition, and authentication. When the 1975 50 centavos coin was released, it was designed for everyday commerce. People used these coins to buy small items, receive change, and conduct ordinary transactions throughout Mexico. Few people could have imagined that decades later, unusual examples from this period would attract serious attention from collectors searching for rare minting mistakes.
The 50 centavos denomination has an important place in Mexican numismatic history. During the 1970s, Mexico produced large quantities of circulating coins in several denominations, and the designs reflected the country's history, culture, and national identity. Because millions of coins were manufactured, most surviving examples are relatively ordinary. The excitement begins when collectors encounter a piece displaying characteristics that could indicate a genuine production error. One of the first things a collector should examine is the coin's overall design. Look closely at the date 1975, the denomination 50 centavos, the Mexican national imagery, lettering, and the placement of every major design element. Even a small difference can sometimes provide an important clue. The coin's physical specifications are also useful. A normal example should conform closely to the official dimensions, composition, and weight established for the issue. If a suspected error coin is noticeably heavier, lighter, thicker, thinner, or different in diameter, that difference deserves further investigation. The reason is simple. Genuine mint errors often occur because something went wrong during the preparation of the planchet or during the striking process. Every circulating coin begins with a metal blank known as a planchet. Before the design is added, the planchet must be prepared to precise specifications. It is then transported into a powerful coining press where dies strike the blank and transfer the design onto its surfaces. Most of the time, everything works exactly as intended. But occasionally, mechanical problems, alignment failures, damaged dies, or production mix-ups create unusual coins. One of the most dramatic possibilities is an off-center strike. An off-center error occurs when the planchet is not correctly positioned between the dies when the coin is struck. Instead of receiving a perfectly centered design, part of the image is shifted toward the edge, leaving a blank area on another portion of the coin. The more dramatic the displacement, the more visually impressive the error can become. Collectors generally prefer examples where the date and denomination remain readable because the coin can still be easily identified. Another important category is the doubled die error. This type of error originates during the preparation of the die itself. If an impression is transferred more than once with slight misalignment, certain parts of the design can appear doubled on coins struck from that die. Collectors carefully inspect lettering, numerals, and other detailed elements under magnification. Strong, clearly defined doubling can make an otherwise ordinary coin considerably more interesting. However, not every apparent doubling is genuine. Mechanical doubling, damage, and other post-mint effects can sometimes look similar to an inexperienced observer. That is why careful examination and professional attribution are important. Another fascinating possibility is a die crack. Coin dies experience enormous pressure during production. Over time, cracks can develop in the hardened steel. When the next planchet is struck, metal flows into those cracks, producing raised lines on the finished coin. A small die crack may have little impact on value, but a dramatic crack crossing important areas of the design can attract collectors who specialize in die varieties. There are also grease-filled die errors. During production, grease, oil, or debris can become trapped inside recessed areas of a die. When the coin is struck, those blocked sections may not transfer their details properly. The result can be weak lettering, missing portions of numerals, or unusually smooth areas where design details should normally appear. Another intriguing error is the clipped planchet. Before a coin is struck, planchets are punched from large sheets of metal. If the punching process overlaps a previous opening, part of the next blank may be missing. When that incomplete planchet is struck,
the finished coin can display a distinctive curved section missing from its edge. The design may also follow the altered shape, helping specialists determine whether the clip occurred before striking.
A broad strike error is another possibility. Normally, a collar holds the planchet in place and helps form the coin's proper diameter and edge. If the collar fails during striking, the metal can spread outward. The finished coin may appear wider than normal and display an unusual or incomplete rim. More dramatic still are wrong planchet errors. This happens when a coin design is accidentally struck onto a blank intended for another denomination.
Such a coin may have an unusual weight, thickness, diameter, or metallic appearance. Because a wrong planchet error requires a major production mix-up, authentic examples can be particularly fascinating to collectors.
Another unusual production event is a die clash. This occurs when opposing dies accidentally strike one another without a planchet between them. Portions of one design can be transferred onto the opposite die, causing later coins to display unexpected details in unusual locations. Of course, collectors must distinguish genuine mint errors from damage that happened after the coin left the mint. Scratches, dents, polishing, corrosion, chemical treatments, and artificially altered surfaces can create strange appearances, but they generally do not carry the same collector premium as authentic mint errors. Condition is another major factor.
A circulated 1975 50 centavos coin may show scratches, worn details, discoloration, and contact marks. An unusual example retaining sharp details and strong original surfaces can be far more desirable.
Professional authentication is especially important when a coin appears to have extraordinary value. Specialists can examine the metal, strike, design, surfaces, and suspected error to determine whether the unusual feature was created during production. For this video, the 1975 Mexican 50 centavos error coin is presented with a value range of $30,300 to $90,450 for exceptional examples, depending on the precise error, rarity, condition, and authentication. That does not mean every 1975 50 centavos coin is worth thousands of dollars. Most examples remain ordinary collectibles. The real excitement comes from discovering a coin with a genuine, unusual, and verifiable minting mistake.
And that is why old Mexican coins can be so fascinating. A forgotten collection, an inherited coin album, an old box, or a group of foreign coins sitting untouched for decades could contain something unexpected. A strange weight, unusual strike, missing detail, dramatic design shift, or abnormal edge could be the clue that sends a collector searching for answers. The 1975 Mexican 50 centavos reminds us that valuable numismatic discoveries are not always large, ancient, or made from precious metals.
Sometimes, an ordinary-looking half-peso-era coin can tell a much bigger story.
So before dismissing an old Mexican coin as just another piece of small change, examine it carefully. Check the date, study the design, inspect the edge, compare its specifications, and look for characteristics that could indicate a genuine mint error. Because somewhere among countless ordinary 1975 coins, an unusual example may still be waiting to be discovered, and for the right collector, that small 50 centavos coin could become an extraordinary piece of Mexican numismatic history. What if an old 20 peso coin from Mexico could be worth more than $81,000? Most people would never expect a coin from everyday circulation to reach such a value, but a genuine 1985 mint error can turn an ordinary-looking piece into an extraordinary collector's discovery. The second coin in today's video is the 1985 Mexican 20 peso error coin, with a potential value range of $24,450 to $81,580, depending on the exact error, rarity, condition, and professional authentication. The 1985 20 peso belongs to an important period in Mexican circulating coinage. During the 1980s, Mexico produced enormous quantities of coins for everyday commerce. These pieces passed through shops, markets, banks, restaurants, and countless hands. Because they were common at the time, very few people fought to save unusual examples. Decades later, however, collectors began looking more carefully at older Mexican coins. Small differences in design, weight, striking, or composition could reveal that a particular coin was not produced exactly as intended. That is where the excitement surrounding error coins begins. A normal 1985 Mexican 20 peso should have its intended design, dimensions, weight, and composition. Collectors examining a potentially valuable example start by checking the 1985 date, the 20 peso denomination, the national imagery, lettering, edge, and overall strike quality. Weight is particularly useful when examining unusual coins. If an example differs significantly from the expected specifications, that can be an important reason to investigate it further. Every circulating coin begins as a metal blank known as a planchet. The planchet is manufactured to precise specifications before entering a coining press. Powerful dies then strike the blank, transferring the obverse and reverse designs onto its surfaces. Most coins are struck correctly, but the minting process involves complicated machinery operating at tremendous speed. Mechanical failures, alignment problems, damaged dies, or production mix-ups can occasionally create genuine errors. One of the most dramatic possibilities is an off-center strike. This happens when the planchet is not properly positioned between the dies when the strike occurs. Instead of receiving the complete design in the center, the image is shifted toward one side. A blank area can remain along part of the edge, producing an appearance that is immediately different from a normal coin. The degree of displacement is important. A barely noticeable shift may have limited collector appeal, while a dramatic off-center strike with the date and denomination still visible can be considerably more desirable. Another fascinating category is the doubled die error. This type of error originates during die production. If an impression is transferred to the die more than once with slight misalignment, portions of the design can appear doubled on coins struck from that die. Collectors use magnification to examine lettering, numerals, and other detailed areas. The key is identifying genuine doubling rather than damage or ordinary machine-related effects. Strong and clearly defined doubling in the correct locations can make an error coin far more interesting. Another possibility is a die crack. The steel dies used to strike coins experience enormous pressure. Over time, stress can cause cracks to develop in the hardened metal. When a planchet is struck with a cracked die, metal flows into the fracture and produces a raised line on the finished coin. Some die cracks are tiny and difficult to notice. Others can extend across major portions of the design and create distinctive patterns that collectors recognize as die varieties. Grease-filled die errors are also worth understanding. During the minting process, grease, oil, or debris can become trapped in recessed areas of a die. When the die strikes the planchet, those blocked areas may not transfer their details completely. The finished coin can therefore show weak lettering, missing portions of numerals, or unusually smooth areas. These errors can be subtle, which is why comparing the suspected coin with a normal example is extremely helpful. Another intriguing error is a clipped planchet. Before striking, large sheets of metal are punched to create individual blanks. If the punching equipment overlaps a previous opening, part of the next planchet can be missing. When that incomplete blank is struck, the resulting coin can display a curved section missing from its edge. The design may follow the altered shape, providing clues that the damage occurred before striking rather than afterward. A broad strike error provides another dramatic example of a minting malfunction. Normally, a collar surrounds the planchet during striking and controls the coin's diameter and rim. If the collar fails to function correctly, the metal can spread outward. The resulting coin may appear wider than a normal 20 peso and can have an unusual or incomplete rim. Collectors often find these errors visually appealing because the difference can be obvious even without specialized equipment. Among the most fascinating possibilities are wrong planchet errors. A wrong planchet error occurs when a coin's design is struck onto a blank intended for another denomination. The result may have an unusual weight, thickness, diameter, or metallic appearance. Because this requires a significant mix-up during production, genuine wrong planchet examples are particularly interesting to specialists. Another unusual production mistake is a die clash. A die clash occurs when opposing dies accidentally strike one another without a planchet between them. The force of the collision can transfer portions of one design onto the opposing die. Coins subsequently struck with those dies may show unexpected design elements in locations where they do not normally belong. Collectors carefully examine these unusual details because they can provide evidence of what happened inside the mint. However, not every strange-looking 1985 20 peso is automatically valuable.
coins can be altered after leaving the mint. Scratches, dents, polishing, corrosion, chemical exposure, grinding, and other forms of damage can produce unusual appearances. A genuine mint error must have characteristics consistent with the manufacturing process. This is why authentication becomes extremely important when a coin appears to have extraordinary value. Condition also plays a major role. A heavily circulated coin may have worn details, scratches, contact marks, and surface discoloration. An example with sharp details, strong original surfaces, and minimal circulation can attract much greater interest. Professional grading and authentication can help determine whether the unusual feature is genuine and establish the coin's condition. For this video, the 1985 Mexican 20 peso error coin is presented with a value range of $24,450 to $81,580 for exceptional examples, depending on the specific error, scarcity, condition, and authentication. It is important to remember that this range does not mean every 1985 20 peso is worth tens of thousands of dollars. Most surviving examples are ordinary coins. The extraordinary values belong to rare examples with clearly identifiable and verifiable characteristics. That distinction is what makes error coin collecting so fascinating. A coin that appears completely ordinary at first can reveal something unexpected when examined carefully. An unusual weight might lead to a composition investigation. A strange edge might reveal a planchet problem. A shifted design might indicate an off-center strike. Even a tiny detail under magnification could provide the first clue that a collector has discovered something unusual. The 1985 Mexican 20 peso is therefore more than an old piece of currency. It represents a fascinating moment in Mexican coinage and demonstrates how manufacturing mistakes can transform ordinary circulating money into collectible history. So if you have older Mexican coins stored away in a collection, drawer, or box, don't dismiss them too quickly. Examine the date, study the lettering, check the edge, compare the weight, and look closely for genuine mint-made abnormalities. Because somewhere among countless ordinary 1985 coins, an unusual 20 peso may still be waiting to be discovered, and for the right collector, that small piece of Mexican history could be worth an extraordinary amount.